Welcome, everybody, to the latest iteration of Nick's Yemen Roundup, covering the time period between 30 June and 6 July 2025. You're listening to the man himself, Nick J. Brumfield. A little bit about me before we get started with the main event. I have an MA in Arab Studies from Georgetown University and over a decade's experience analyzing Middle East politics, and am regularly quoted in international media, especially as it relates to events in Yemen, but my expertise extends beyond the country to the other Gulf states, as well as I also have experience in the Levant. I have extensive background in project and data management, GIS capabilities that are developing, as well as several years' experience working in political risk, business intelligence, and more recently, legal consulting. So, all of this is to say, if you like the Nick's Yemen Roundup and other products associated with my channel, please feel free to reach out to me at info.nickjbrumfield@gmail.com if you have any inquiries regarding professional contacts or even jobs. So, definitely feel free to reach out to me with regards to that. If you're unable to do that, that's fine. Just please, if you can, like the video, subscribe to my channel, and share my content to get my name out there and my work. As an independent freelancer, I live and die by engagement in the market. So I always appreciate anything anyone can do for me with regards to that. So with that, we can go ahead and get started to the main event, which is the Yemen Roundup part of it. And let's start off with international affairs, especially as it relates to the United Nations, where we did see a considerable engagement, in particular from the UN Special Envoy's office, headed by UN Special Envoy himself, Hans Grunberg, who visited Aden this past week between 1 and 2 July. During that time, he met with Yemeni government Prime Minister Salim bin Barak, as well as other members of civil society in the city. He said his goal is to engage with all of the stakeholders and parties in the Yemen peace process. He stressed the need to sort of move away from a war mentality towards a peace process there. We also did see the day that UN Special Envoy Grunberg left, his military advisor, Anthony Hayward, as well as, I believe, the director of the Office of the Special Envoy, did visit the Dale front line after the recent Sana'a, Aden, Dale road reopening that we saw over the course of the last several weeks, inspected the area around Marays where that took place. Interestingly, I did see reports, I didn't confirm this in state-aligned media, but I did see it from pro-STC-aligned media that, in fact, one of the officials that they met with is the head of the 8th military region, which, if that is confirmed, would confirm the establishment of the 8th military region by presidential decree that we saw reported on, but not necessarily promulgated over the course of the last several weeks. So for those tracking institutional developments there, we also did see on 2 July, the UN Security Council here presentations from the UN panel of experts on Yemen, and extended the panel's a mandate to 15 December 2025, this is a fairly routine exercise, but it'll be interesting to see what the panel comes out with this year. Their stuff really is, in terms of the Bible, a lot of the times for those reporting on Yemen, and when that comes out, you'll see a lot of stories kind of essentially cribbing from it in many ways. So obviously this is the first time we've seen Grunberg moving around in Aden for the last little bit. I can't remember the last time he's been there, but it wasn't recently. It doesn't seem like he's going to Sana'a yet. The Houthis probably won't let him, or it's always a question of whether the Houthis will actually let him come to Sana'a. More often, he's in Muscat talking to Mohammed Abdul Salam. But this question of, okay, he's moving around, is something about to happen in Yemen? Possibly, I would say, although it's still very unclear, and I would say probably more likely not than more likely. We've seen some interesting stuff moving around in Riyadh. We've seen, for instance, Idris al-Zubaydi's been hanging out in Riyadh for the last little bit in a way that he doesn't normally. For his part, PLC chairman Rashad al-Alimi's been hanging out in Aden longer than he normally is. So it's an interesting time where you're seeing a lot of people on the board moving in places where they don't normally, and that could indicate that something's about to happen. But if you're a betting man and you have to bet, I would probably say no, the peace isn't about to break out in Yemen, unfortunately. Moving on over to, yeah, and this gets to my point regarding Zubaydi. We did see, with regards to international affairs as it relates to the Yemeni government, a couple engagements worth noting this week. We did see on 1 July, PLC member and mayor of Governor Sultan Al Arada meet with U.S. Charge d'Affaires Jonathan Page in Riyadh. More or less, that's a fairly routine meeting. And again, we did see on 2 July, PLC member and STC president Idris Al Zubaydi meet the Secretary General of the GCC, Jassim Al Badawi, in Riyadh on 2 July. Again, this meeting in and of itself is not necessarily all that exceptional. This is something that happens from time to time between various leaders and the GCC Secretary General. But the thing that's of note is that Zubaydi's in Riyadh right now. And Zubaydi's in Riyadh without Alimi being in Riyadh. And so it's just very interesting to sort of see, because most of the time Zubaydi's in Abu Dhabi. And when he's not in Abu Dhabi, he's in Aden, and Alimi's not in Aden when Zubaydi's not. So yeah, the fact that these people are moving around, maybe something's being shuffled behind closed doors, but in terms of public information available on that, nothing out just yet. Moving on over to politics and governance in Yemen from the Yemeni government perspective, we did see some interesting things happening this week. Probably the most interesting and notable one was kind of this saga related to the Yemeni government-aligned parliament's leadership in Aden in its attempts to assert its authority. So we did see on 1 July, PLC chairman Rashad Al-Alimi, who has been hanging out in Aden longer than he normally has, longer than I expected him to. Normally, he's in there for the big events like Eid or something, and then he's out within a week or two, but he's still there at least. So we did see him meet with Yemeni government parliamentary leadership, in particular Speaker Sultan Barakani, to discuss the need to convene parliament and to convene it and sort of have it fulfill its duties. We did see the subsequent day, Speaker Barakani held a meeting of the parliamentary leadership and ordered the formation of essentially investigatory committees from parliament to go investigate financial, technical matters in the governorates, ostensibly provide supervisory authority as the official legislative branch of the Yemeni state. The STC was not having this. We did see various branches of the STC aligned, various branches of the STC in the governorates all come out individually and reject these parliamentary committees, calling the parliament devoid of legitimacy and just saying, no, we're not going to let this happen. This is a continuation of a years-long conflict between the STC, which is supports a separatist project in Yemen. They want to separate the area that used to be South Yemen from Yemen into its own independent state again, and the parliament, which ostensibly is the legislative branch for the Republic of Yemen. The parliament has not been subject to elections since 2003. So a lot of the people who are members of parliament are very old, or several of them have died. They've not faced election since 2003. So there is, I think, legitimate question over to what extent they do represent the popular will of Yemen. At the same time, nobody in the STC is elected either, the body that the STC is attempting to kind of, have replaced Parliament in many ways. The PLC-aligned Consultation and Reconciliation Commission has 51 members. It's led by an STC-aligned leadership. I mentioned them on the call last week. But it's not like they were elected either. They were appointed. So there's this question of, so the STC has prevented the Yemeni government parliament from sitting in areas under their control, including the temporary capital Aden, for years now. I believe the last time parliament actually sat was back in, I want to say 2019, and they had to do it in Sayun, way up in central Hadramaut, far away from STC control, because the STC wouldn't let them come in. And then, over the years, they've talked about trying to hold a parliamentary meeting in Aden, and the STC just won't let them because it exercises security control over the city. We did see on 2 July, Prime Minister Salim bin Barak preside over a cabinet meeting, again on the economy and services, which have continued to deteriorate over the course of the last week. We did see on 6 July, Dr. Ali Atbush Awad Mohammed Al Yamini appointed the director of the Prime Minister's office. So that is interesting and important, particularly given there was to be honest, I didn't get into the minutia of a particular scandal, but there was quite a bit of scandal in the last government or the last premiership under Ahmed Awad bin Mubarak. His prime minister off his head was, implicated in various scandals, or people were accusing him of scandals. And so yeah, so whenever it's an important position, even though it's not prime minister, it's effectively the chief of staff. So something to keep an eye on at least. Moving on over to politics and governance in Yemen from the Houthi movement perspective, we did see over the course of the last week a lot of popular mobilization, both for Palestine, but also for the Ashura holiday, which commemorates the martyrdom of Imam Hussein for Shia Muslims. Zaidi Islam, which is the branch of Yemen that is the branch of Islam that is not necessarily has historically been politically dominant in northern areas of northern Yemen, is kind of aligned. People say it's not Shia because it is very different from the 12er and 7ers historically. That has been changing given Houthi alignment with Iran in recent years. But anyway, historically it was very different, but it is a considered a Shia branch. So we did see Abdul Malik al-Houthi give two speeches throughout the week. One was on kind of just this regional situation on 3 July. Interestingly, during this speech, he warned that Israeli expansion into Gaza and West Bank and all of the other Arab states that Israel's been, messing with, it was eventually that they would be aiming for the Kaaba, for Mecca and Medina, for the Muslim holy sites. This is something that he has said before, but it's interesting when you hear him say it. The Zionist plan is to go for Mecca and Medina. Many people also believe that the Houthis' plan ultimately is to go for Mecca and Medina, which are not actually that far from Yemen when you look at a map, and try to become the custodians of the Muslim holy places. We also did see a second speech by Abdul Malik al-Houthi on 6 July, this time for Ashura, during which he praised the steadfastness of Gaza and Iran. And essentially, he's just kind of throughout all of these, he says a lot of stuff without necessarily saying a whole lot of stuff. The gist to take from these is that the Houthis aren't going to abandon Gaza or Palestine. They're going to be steadfast in the face of Israeli threats and attacks, which is more or less what they're always saying. We did see on 6 July and out throughout the week, there were various events to commemorate the martyrdom of Imam Hussein and, stuff, but there was a big march on 6 July in Sana'a, which you can see a picture of here on the right. Moving on so that was kind of the high politics in Houthi areas. And now we go to the kind of the nitty gritty of some of the governance in Houthi held areas where unfortunately we've seen a lot of attacks and human rights violations over the course of the last week. The big one that has garnered a lot of attention from anti-Houthi sort of people and activists was the killing of Sheikh Saleh al-Hantus, who was, I believe, a Quran studies teacher or instructor in Rema Governorate in northern Yemen. So that's one of the smaller governorates to the west of Sana'a, kind of in the mountains. But yeah, between 1 and 2 July, Houthi forces besieged his home, literally surrounded it, and then shelled it and fired at it, ultimately killing him and severely injuring his wife. Allegedly, according to them, due to his collaboration with the aggression, or what they call the Saudi-led coalition, incitement, and his opposition to the Houthi stance on Palestine is kind of what the area, what the charges that they brought against him. And they say he resisted, and they did what they needed to do. But yeah, the other people are essentially just kind of saying, "Oh, this was a nice, sort of Quran teacher." Look at the crimes that the Houthis have been doing. The Houthis are definitely seemingly to take the political threat of this man's death seriously. We did see on 3 July, Houthi authorities closed down his funeral. They banned people from approaching the cemetery, and while he was buried, they banned cell phones and photography. And we did see on 6 July, pro-Yemeni government media report, Houthi authorities have abducted several over reporting, on Sheikh Hantus's death in that area. They also have reportedly abducted several members of his family. Kind of Similarly, in Ib, which is a bit further to the southeast, south of Sana'a, we did see on 2 July Houthi forces abduct an additional 7 people, including 2 academics and 2 teachers in Badain district in Ib. This comes amid a weeks-long arrest campaign that we've seen the group carrying out in Ib, with a human rights organization on 3 July reporting that at least 33 people have been abducted in the governorate in recent weeks, including doctors, lawyers, teachers, and activists. Essentially, the kind of people that you round up if you're wanting to, suppress protests, suppress agitation against the group, which is particularly strong in Ib, which, although is in Houthi-held areas, is for a number of reasons, not just because of the Houthis, but also just because of its position in Yemen's political economy and history, has been a hotbed for protest and in opposition to the group. And yeah, the Houthis, periodically will crack down on it in particular. Moving on over to military and security behind the front lines, couple things of note. The first is in Marib Governorate, which is in the north sort of portion of this map here, where we did see on 2 July, local security forces, Marib Security, claim to arrest a Houthi sabotage cell. It is unclear. There we go. It is unclear if this sabotage cell is the same sabotage cell that Marib security forces claimed were responsible for all of these attacks on fuel tankers and Yemeni government-aligned forces in eastern Marib Governorate along that international road over the course of the past month. But they did claim to have arrested that sabotage cell. In Abiyan Governorate, which is in this sort of south portion of this map here, we did see a number of good and bad events, I suppose. On 5 July, we did see reports that Yemeni government-aligned governor of Abiyan, I believe it's Ali Muqbil Saleh, but correct me if I'm wrong on that, reported that steps were underway with the civilian group White Flags, which has been a kind of very popular initiative, around 50 volunteers that's been going around trying to open the roads between Houthi and Yemeni government-aligned forces. So it's very kind of a civil society group. They've done a couple of big ones now, but now they're trying to get the Thera road between Yemeni government and Houthi-aligned forces between Bayda and Abiyan. The Abiyan governor did say that they are working to undertaking steps to open that road. The Houthis, for their part, the following day unilaterally opened the road and said, "What are you doing? Why are you waiting? We're doing stuff." Definitely tried to make a PR event out of it, which they're known to do. But yeah, so possibly good news on the humanitarian front there. Less good, we did see on 5 July as well, pro-Houthi media report the STC-aligned security belt forces, as well as the Abiyan Governorate-aligned 85th Brigade, had clashes over the imposition of levies on trucks going through the Dofs checkpoint in Abiyan. So Abiyan, you may notice, is kind of corridor linking Eastern Yemeni government-controlled Eastern Yemen with the capital Aden, or temporary capital Aden. And so this makes it very strategic, where you see a lot of different armed groups setting up checkpoints to try to impose taxes on goods traveling between those two. One of them, so there's been reports in recent weeks that there's been quite a bit of reports in recent weeks that there's been a lot of conflict over taxes, in particular on fuel tankers that are coming from Marib, Shabwa, and Hadramaut Governorate. Sorry, I'm just trying to clear all of my drawings here so that I don't go around doing that. All right. There we go. Moving on over to military and security in front of the front line. So this is along the front lines between Houthi and anti-Houthi forces. On the Marib Jau front, we did see on 1 July pro-Houthi media reports that the Yemeni government is preparing reinforcements, massive reinforcements, according to these reports, to deploy along the Jau front, kind of the Marib Jau front indicated here on the map, with the Houthis in preparation for a massive attack, according to these Houthi forces. They link these to similar military movements or alleged military movements on the southwest, the Yemen southwest coast where Tariq Saleh is, and say that this is preparation for a big attack. This is something that people have been questioning quite a bit over the course of the last several months as the Yemeni government has tried to lobby for international support against the Houthis, in particular during that month and a half period where the US was just bombing the hell out of the Houthis. But there's nothing materialized of it. No one really thought anything would materialize of it because the Yemeni government is just very fractious. It's kind of a mess right now, and the idea that they would be able to launch a large coordinated offensive that would be successful is actually quite doubtful. So I do not actually think that the Yemeni government's prepping for a major attack, but it is important because one, it is a data point in that discussion of is the Yemeni government going to try to do something? So definitely keep an eye on that for that. And then the second is how the Houthis are presenting their counterparties, and if the Houthis are sort of portraying the Yemeni government as about to be bellicose, are they going to do their own attack, which the Houthis can much more credibly launch a ground attack right now, although they are significantly they have taken some punches from these airstrikes. They still have quite a bit of ground assets. In terms of moving southwest to Taz front, we did see on 3 July, Yemeni government forces claimed to repel a Houthi attack east of Taz city, and then there was a kind of a standoff. Something happened. So there were reports. The Yemeni government claims the Houthis launched a drone attack that hit fuel tanks in Taz City and caused a large explosion that killed 1 and injured 24 people. The Houthis, for their part, have denied this and accused the Yemeni government of shelling and causing this explosion. So it's unclear. Very he said, she said. There's been a lot of pictures circulating on social media of large fireballs, so it was a very evocative, and it's unfortunate. People were injured and died, but just something to keep an eye on there. But of course, the two things that everybody's sort of been interested in is the maritime security aspect, which is rearing its head again after several months, and then the Houthi-Israel exchanges that have taken place over roughly the last 24 to 48 hours. We'll start off with the maritime security aspect. So we did see on 6 July, UK MTO report the bulk carrier Magic Seas was attacked 51 nautical miles southwest of Hudaydah. There's a map here on the right that indicates its approximate location. This attack, this was a multi-stage attack that saw the vessel targeted in numerous occasions in different ways. The first attack involved reported 8 skiffs, sort of pirate skiffs that attacked the vessel with small arms and RPGs, roughly 100 nautical miles off Hudaydah. And then there was a subsequent attack that involved 4 drone boats, 2 of which struck the vessel at the water, and 2 of which were destroyed by vessel security forces. These 2 drone boats did impact the vessel, caused a fire, and the vessel was taking on water. The crew has abandoned ship as of 7 July 2025, and there is speculation that it is likely to sink. The Houthis have not claimed this attack publicly, but it bears all of the indications of the Houthi attack. I don't believe, for a second that it's anybody but the Houthis. But it is interesting that they haven't claimed it just yet, or at least as of the time of this taping, and that they're doing it. So this is the first the first really confirmed Houthi attack on international shipping since December of 2024. So that was when they powered down on that and switched over to focusing on attacks on Israel. Ever since they restarted their kind of regional attacks related to the Gaza conflict, those have all been targeted at Israel, like launching missiles directly at Israel. They have not. They threatened to do it in March, which the Trump administration kind of took as a casus belli to start its operation Rough Rider against the Houthis and bomb everything. But they never actually got around to doing it, and they have not since. They haven't done anything since those operations stopped in early May. They did recently, and I believe I mentioned it last week or the week before. threatened to attack shipping that's sort of Israeli flagged or going to Israel. But yeah, this is a big deal in the sense that this could be them restarting it. This could bring the United States back in. This could make the international community much more angry with the Houthis than just launching missiles at Israel. So there's something to be there. There are reports that the vessel owner of the Magic Seas, All Seas Marine, did have a number of ships call at Israel recently, including one that was there during sort of this attack. So a lot going on there, something to keep an eye on. Seems that the Houthis still have most of their capabilities to attack international shipping, despite the year and a half of international bombardment, the various sort of attacks by both Israel and the United States and the United Kingdom. So, yeah, not great there. And then the other one is related, which is the much more explicit kind of conflict between the Israel and the Houthis. Houthis lob missiles at Israel. Israel airstrikes Yemen. That's kind of the dynamic that has emerged, especially over the course of the last, I would say, 2 months. So we did see, with regards to Houthi missile activity, continuation of the pattern that we've seen of them claiming attacks, in particular on Ben Gurion Airport, but also this week Tel Aviv, Ashkelon, and Eilat. Israel intercepts, at least one missile from that and didn't report any damage from any of the other seeming attacks. Again, on 6 July, they claimed a Palestine 2 missile attack on Ben Gurion Airport. Israel claimed to have intercepted it. And then, in particular, following the Israeli on 7 July, we did see Israel conduct airstrikes on Hudaydah, Ras Isa, and Salif ports, as well as Ras Kathib power plant, which is around Hudaydah, and the Galaxy Leader, which is the merchant vessel that was the first sort of target of Houthi maritime attacks way back in, I think, November of 2023. Israel claims that this was terrorist infrastructure, which is kind of their rote claim with regards to that. They claim that the Galaxy Leader, the Houthis had installed a radar system on the Galaxy Leader to be used to essentially for maritime monitoring. I do find that plausible. That seems pretty plausible, actually. But the continuous airstrikes on Hudaydah, Ras Isa, and Salif ports, which are all major pieces of humanitarian infrastructure that import food and fuel. That's again, whenever that happens, they've done it so many times that it's almost kind of fading into the background. But that's big when they do that. Notably, the Houthis did claim that their air defenses had prevented Israeli fighters from penetrating Yemen, sort of Houthi airspace beyond Hudaydah and forced a retreat. They say, oh yeah, it confused them and it forced at least 10 planes to pull back. I don't know about that. That does seem to be a little outside of the plausible line, at least as from what we know about current Houthi air defenses, but maybe they're unveiling something new, something to keep an eye on with regards to that. But yeah, following that, we did see on 7 July, the Houthis claim 11 military operations, including 3 ballistic missile attacks targeting Ben Gurion Airport, Ashdod Port, and Ashkelon, and 8 drones at Eilat Port. Notably, these are, it's not the first time that they're targeting ports. Obviously, they've announced a maritime blockade on Israel, but they did claim to sort of take part in the targeting of the ports, Eilat and Ashdod in particular. It's like, okay, yeah, that seems to possibly be them shifting their strategy a little bit to target maritime infrastructure more than they were before. You didn't see necessarily that much. And I believe they claimed that was a joint operation. I can't remember, but in all likelihood with Iran-backed militias in Iraq. Moving on over to humanitarian and economic issues, really the main humanitarian issue this week relates to displacement and migration. So Yemen, as some of you may know, is a major route for African migrants trying to cross from the Horn of Africa on their way to the Gulf states where they work. So there are 2 main migration routes. The first is from northern Somalia to Shabwa, like the sort of southern coast area. And then the second is the much shorter, but also very dangerous route between Djibouti and the sort of southwest coast of Yemen. So this week we did see 2 stories as it related to, in particular, the Somalia to Shabwa route. On 3 July, we did see Ahwar district, which is in Abyad. So this area here, so that's the area, did report that four cholera cases had been found among African migrants who were quarantined, there is a cholera outbreak across large swaths of Africa, but Yemen is kind of part of it. And whether these African migrants were actually bringing cholera to Yemen or were just infected by other people in Yemen, because it is very much in Yemen already. The discourse around African migrants in Yemen is very, in some cases, xenophobic. Very much, they're bringing diseases, they're bringing disorder and that kind of thing. And local authorities have, in particular in Shabwa, have not necessarily been kind to them. Or at least in their rhetoric. But yeah, the Yemeni government treats them like crap. The Houthis treat them like crap. The Saudis have killed many of them. And we did see that sort of continue on 6th July. We did see Yemeni government security forces intercept a boat carrying 150 Ethiopian migrants from the Horn of Africa off Shabwa. This is a regular occurrence and has been a regular occurrence for the last several months now. Every couple of weeks, they'll claim a boat roughly carrying about 150 people will get intercepted. And we did see on 6th July, pro-Houthi media reports the Saudi forces fire had killed a Yemeni civilian and injured a Yemeni and African migrant up north along the front line there. Again, we do have good evidence to indicate that Saudi forces have killed thousands of African migrants attempting to cross the border. And so I don't talk about it every week, because even though some stuff happens every week and it's kind of a low level, it's very important, but in terms of, it's just kind of a constant low drone of violence against migrants. But, I did want to flag it this week because there's a lot of events this week. Moving on over to humanitarian and economic issues as they relate to infrastructure, port infrastructure, obviously major issue, major question. So we are seeing more and more economic data coming out to indicate that the airstrikes, in particular against the Houthi-held Red Sea ports, are beginning to or have already begun to significantly degrade their ability to bring in imports through to Houthi-held areas or just Yemen in general. There was a lot of perhaps premature alarm over the strikes way back in July 2024. I put out a piece almost immediately after that saying there's going to be an immediate impact on this. This is bad. It didn't necessarily have that immediate impact, so I think some people have maybe looked away from it. But I also did warn of a medium to long-term impact, and we are seeming to see that now in a big way. So between January and May 2025, we have seen fuel through Houthi-held Red Sea ports down 13%. Food imports are down 20%, and that's year over year. The 12-year running average, it's down something like 47%. Conversely, we've seen seemingly traffic shift from Houthi-held Red Sea ports to Yemeni government-held Hudaydah ports, which have fuel up 21% year over year and food up 100%. And that was before the 7 July strikes that Hudaydah journalist Bassem al-Ghanani reported were the worst against Hudaydah since the April and May 2025 strikes from the United States and Israel that really hit that. We are seeing imports continue, at least based on AIS vessel data. The U.S. still has to sanction vessels because they're still bringing fuel into these ports. But these constant strikes over the course of a year and a half have seemingly degraded it and are seemingly having, effects on humanitarian conditions in Yemeni government-held areas. They can bring some of this stuff in through Aden, but it's going to be more expensive getting to Houthi-held areas because Hudaydah is just kind of naturally the port for Sana'a. It's much closer, and the Houthis it doesn't have to go through double taxation from the Houthis and the Yemeni government, and et cetera, et cetera. So in terms of energy infrastructure, from that same report, we did see data from the Food and Agriculture Organization reports that fuel in Yemeni government-held areas is up 26 to 33% year over year in terms of fuel prices, despite lowering global fuel prices, largely due to the continued deterioration of the Yemeni rial and Yemeni government-held areas, which has just been atrocious. But interestingly, and this is a data point we haven't necessarily had from Houthi-held areas because the formal prices have remained stable. But according to this data, it indicates that year over year, 39% increase in parallel fuel market prices in Houthi-held areas, which is even greater than the Yemeni government-held areas, and that this is largely or probably due to the degradation of the import capacity that resulting from these airstrikes. Interestingly, we also did see that same report indicate that even though, and I'll talk more about this in the banking and currency page, even though the exchange rate in Houthi-held areas has remained stable at about 530, while the Yemeni government rial exchange rate has significantly deteriorated, that purchasing power in Yemeni government-held areas is actually better than purchasing power in Houthi-held areas. So if true, that kind of flips our sort of understanding of what's going on in the Yemen conflict on its head there, at least in terms of the economy. On 6 July, we did see on an electricity report that 5,000 tons of emergency diesel had arrived and another 11,000 tons were on its way amid ongoing, just horrible power outages in the city. And this has been a major political thing for months now. I've been reporting on it. So that's going on. In terms of border infrastructure, we did see Saudi Arabia, and they do this from time to time, have banned Yemenis from bringing food through Hudaydah border crossing between Saudi Arabia and Yemen and on flights from Yemen to Saudi Arabia. Ostensibly, this is due to concerns over contamination and food safety, that kind of thing, or at least it seems to be the justification. They did this from time to time over the course of the last year or 2 years. Yemen exports some foodstuffs to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is obviously, due to proximity and everything, a major trading partner. So whenever they do this, that does cause some issues for Yemeni farmers trying to export to the Saudi market. We also did see on 6 July, the Houthi-aligned Customs Authority announce a boycott on U.S. and Israeli technology products. And they did provide this handy guide. This is a page from, I believe, their guide that indicates the products and brands that are banned really in Houthi-held areas due to the boycott. They frame this, and they've been doing stuff like this for a year and a half, 2 years now, as supporting Gaza and supporting Palestine. And I definitely think that's part of it. One has to wonder if they're also concerned about Israeli and U.S. Technology products being used against the movement in the same way that we saw them used against Hezbollah and those pagers. So they are intensely security cautious. They're intensely, constantly worried about technology being used for espionage. So definitely something to consider there. In terms of water infrastructure, we also did see between 4 and 6 July, the drinking water crisis intensified in Taz with local. So this has been going on for months due to lack of rain, depleted groundwater. There's just been a horrible just a horrible drinking water crisis. People can't get water to drink in Yemeni government-held Taz. Local officials have accused desalination plants of manipulation, but that could just very well be blame shifting. Yemen is one of the most climate vulnerable countries in the world. There's a lot of really good stuff written on that. I've actually written an article myself on how flooding is going to change, or both in Yemen and the United States, and how they should talk to each other. But yeah, so that's unfortunate. And last but not least, in terms of humanitarian and economic issues, banking and currency, as of May 2025, we did see the World Food Program report that the Yemeni rial had lost 31% of its value year over year amid massive inflation. You can sort of see how that value has inflated over the course of the last several years, actually. And then the World Food Program is also reportedly concerned about a slowdown and a lack of liquidity in Houthi-held areas due to, in part, the FTO, but ongoing economic issues there as well. So that's all I have for me. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, put them in the comment section. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share the content. And if you have any questions, or other inquiries regarding professional stuff, please feel free to reach out to me at info.nickjbrumfield@gmail.com. But until next time, have a great one, and thank you.